Welcome to Tech Talks. Our security edition today is focused on the release of Splunk SOAR, both on-prem and in the cloud, and highlights the new Splunk SOAR Visual Playbook Editor. Tech Talks is a series of short webinars that are deep dives for technical practitioners. We value you, our customer, and want you to continue in your Splunk journey. Our experts help create these best practices, and we want you to leverage them in your daily role. I'm Olivia Courtney, a security product marketing specialist, and I'm excited to share the latest information on Splunk SOAR with my colleague Ian Forrest. Today, we are going to introduce you to all things Splunk SOAR Cloud. We'll go over the features and benefits of the product. We'll show you one of our favorite features, the new modern Visual Playbook Editor, and then we will cover additional resources available to help you take advantage of automation capabilities in Splunk. Our team will be available for Q&A throughout over the Q&A widget within your screen. And if you watch a recorded version of this webinar, please continue the conversation through the Tech Talks discussions in the Splunk community at splunk.com/Tech Talk. Before we dive into Splunk SOAR Cloud, let's first talk about what Splunk SOAR is. Splunk SOAR is a rebranding of Phantom. It will have two development options: Splunk SOAR on-premises, which was previously Splunk Phantom, and Splunk SOAR Cloud. This is a lift and shift of the current Phantom product onto the cloud. In other words, it's an enterprise cloud hosting of the Phantom instance. For those of you who are new to SOAR or need a quick refresher, SOAR stands for Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. This tool helps security teams work smarter, respond faster, and modernize security operations in a few ways. SOAR helps SOCs reduce alert fatigue, automation, and ultimately clears a vast majority of alerts without human interaction. It can force multiply your team and increase efficiency by plowing through the workload of 10 full-time employees with only 3. In other words, you can do more with the people you already have. It leverages your existing security tools and infrastructure to work better together in order to provide a stronger protection against threats. Through the use of orchestration and automated response, your security stack can work seamlessly together as part of the overall defense strategy. This not only increases the speed of your investigation and response, but unlocks value from previous investments. Splunk SOAR also helps lower mean time to detect and mean time to respond. One customer found that they could resolve a security incident that used to take 30 minutes all the way down to 30 seconds. And that's a lot of time saved. And lastly, Splunk SOAR is available for customers to deploy in the cloud, on-premises, or hybrid, so they can automate anywhere their own way. Now that we've talked a bit about the main benefits of Splunk SOAR, here are a few reasons why we launched a cloud version. It can help you achieve faster time to value with more efficient installation, configuration, implementation, and scaling across your entire security infrastructure. It can help you achieve simplified operational overhead. Cloud software updates are continuous and automatic. No need to manually push new software updates that necessitate downtime. This allows SOC teams to focus more on use case development and less on infrastructure management. It can also increase security agility without sacrificing performance. This will help ensure that business is secure while driving rapid innovations. I'm going to pass this over to Ian to tell you more.
One of the exciting innovations that we created for Cloud SOAR was the introduction of the automation broker. The automation broker is a Dockerized utility that facilitates the running of actions in on-prem environments. When you think about how SOAR works, is it takes actions against your security infrastructure. For cloud accessible solutions, this is no problem at all. We can continue to use the REST-based APIs the way we always have. For on-premises solutions that sit behind a firewall, we needed to create the Dockerized automation broker to allow for relaying actions from the cloud source solution to the on-premises solution. So the way that this works is a persistent gRPC tunnel gets created. Cloud SOAR will send any action requests through the tunnel. The automation broker will run those actions in the on-premises environment and then return the action results to Cloud SOAR. The great thing about this solution is that it creates outbound connections only. This means that no ingress rules need to be created on the firewall only egress rules, which should be very simple to implement in any security environment. While Splunk SOAR Cloud has near feature parity with on-premise SOAR, there are a few discrepancies that are important to call out. First, there is no CyberArk integration for asset credentials management. This is due to the fact that the CyberArk integration requires an executable sidecar that cannot be installed in the cloud environment. We are looking at an API solution to re-implement the CyberArk integration so that it can be deployed in Cloud SOAR. There is no Python 2 support in Cloud SOAR. This means Python 3 only. All of the Splunk-owned apps have been updated to Python 3. Any custom apps that customers have written when considering migrating to Cloud SOAR would need to be upgraded to Python 3 as well. The mobile app is not available for Cloud SOAR, and also LDAP for authentication is not available. One of the most exciting features in the 5.0 release of Splunk SOAR Cloud is the modern Visual Playbook Editor. As you can see from this screenshot, the modern Playbook Editor is a complete visual overhaul of the classic Playbook Editor. One thing to note is that the classic Playbook Editor will continue to be available for Splunk SOAR customers. So any content that you've created in the classic Playbook Editor will continue to work. And if you choose to use the more familiar classic Playbook Editor, you can continue to do so. The modern Playbook Editor does offer a new user experience and a number of new and exciting features, which we'll go over in the next couple of slides. There were a few key areas that we focused on when designing the new Visual Playbook Editor. The first was a focus on simplifying the interface to make automating easier than ever. We did this by improving readability with a bolder color palette, new block shapes to clearly differentiate between block types, wider blocks supporting longer descriptions, and labels on lines coming from filters and decisions. We also added an auto-arrange feature, which helps organize your automations so others can easily understand them. We also changed the orientation of playbooks to vertically oriented to support some of those capabilities, as well as allow easier navigation via the scroll wheel. In terms of navigation and playbook authoring, we added multiple ways to add new blocks, including keyboard shortcuts. We've also made a number of changes to decrease the overall dependence on Python custom code, which leads me to our next focus area. Playbook scalability was another hugely important factor for us. How can we help Splunk SOAR users reuse as much content as possible as easily as possible? That led us to a very exciting feature in being able to create playbooks with defined inputs and defined outputs. These input playbooks allow playbook authors to start with small, single-purpose micro playbooks like URL investigation or IP investigation that they can then leverage in larger use cases like phishing triage or malware investigation. Finally, our last focus area to this new playbook editor design was to make playbooks easier for less code-savvy user while still enabling advanced users to create automation quickly. To do this, we made sure that playbook parameters that were once only accessible via custom Python code are now accessible as UI options on playbook blocks. We also redesigned the data path picker so that it's more easily consumable and editable in the event that custom data paths are needed. We aren't done yet either. This new playbook editor will be a vehicle for further features and enhancements after its initial release. Now, let's stop talking about it and start showing it to you. I'm going to pop into a short demo now to demonstrate the new capabilities of the new Visual Playbook Editor. For today's demo, we're going to be looking at a phishing event. This is a phishing email that has been ingested by SOAR. As you can see, it's extracted a number of different indicators from that email. In this case, it's extracted a URL artifact, which we're going to investigate using the new input playbook functionality to create a modular URL investigation playbook. There's likely a lot more that you'd want to do as part of a phishing investigation, but today we're going to focus on specifically the URL investigation capability and worry about the other stuff later for the sake of this demo. So first of all, we'll go to our new playbook editor and we can see that we're greeted with two different playbook types that we can choose from. One is the automation type playbook, which is the same type of playbook that we know and love from Splunk SOAR and Splunk Phantom. And the second is an input type playbook. And the input type playbook is the new playbook that we've been talking about. This is a playbook that accepts specifically defined input parameters and can be used for modular use cases or modular playbook design. So I'm going to hit the input playbook type, and we're going to go ahead and come to our playbook canvas. And the first thing that we'll see here is that we're being asked to create an input variable name. So this playbook is going to be our URL investigation playbook. So we're going to say that it ingests or it takes URLs as input. So I'm going to name my input variable URLs. I'll also say that the data type that belongs to this input URL is a URL type data. So now that we've got that taken care of, we're going to create a new action for our playbook. And like I mentioned, there's a bunch of new ways to add blocks to the playbook editor. The most intuitive way is this drag and drop capability, where we can drag blocks from the toolbox on the left-hand side directly onto the canvas. So I'm going to drag an action block onto the canvas, and we'll go ahead and make this our URL reputation check because we want to investigate the URL from our phishing email. So I'll search for URL reputation. And then I'll pick the VirusTotal app. And we see the VirusTotal URL reputation action is looking for a URL input. So what we're going to do here is we're going to select the URLs playbook input that I defined as part of this input type playbook. And we're also going to rename this action so that it's clearer to anyone that's looking at this exactly what this action is doing. So we'll call it VirusTotal URL reputation check. This is one of the more subtle things that we did as an improvement to the new Visual Playbook Editor, but we widened the blocks and we allowed for multiple lines so that it's very clear to anyone that's looking at this playbook what this action is specifically doing. I'm going to connect this to the start block. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a filter block. And I'm going to do that by using the keyboard shortcut capability. So I'm going to hit Command B, and then I'm going to hit Command 5. And we'll see that a filter block has been created. Notice that the filter is now an upside down triangle or a funnel shape. We did that to make sure that we could differentiate between some of the other blocks that exist in the product. One of those specifically being the decision block. So now the decision block is a diamond, as it always was, and the filter block is an upside down triangle, again, to make it much easier to discern between the two and really indicate that they perform different functions. We're going to focus on the filter today, though. And we're going to look at the results of our VirusTotal URL reputation check, and we're going to filter some of those results. So specifically, we're looking for summary data, and we can see in the new data path picker, we represent the data paths in a tree view, which makes it very easy to get to different sections of the action results. In this case, I want to get to the summary section. So I'll just collapse the data section. And in the summary section, I want to look at the number of positives that were associated with this particular URL. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And we'll say if the number of positives associated with this URL is greater than or equal to 3, then we're going to call those URLs bad URLs. So I'm going to call this bad URLs. And we're naming this condition, which is a new feature that didn't exist before. And we'll see how this manifests itself in just a moment. We'll also make an additional condition, and we'll say VirusTotal, and we're going to go to the summary section, and we're going to look at the number of positives, and we're going to say, hey, when the number of positives is less than 3, then we're going to call these unknown URLs. So we'll say unknown URLs. And that doesn't mean they're good. It just means that VirusTotal didn't know about them, so the state is unknown, and we might need to do further investigation. Okay, great. Now that we've done that, I'm going to create yet another new block. And I'm going to do that in one different way that you haven't seen yet. I'm going to drag a line out. And this is similar to the old way, except we get this mini map. And what I'm going to do next is create a utility block. The utility block is a new block that didn't exist before, where we combine what were previously called new custom functions and API blocks together into one block type. This is one of the ways that we've streamlined the new playbook editor to reduce the number of blocks that are available to users, to make it easier to make decisions as to which block to use under what circumstances. So I'm going to click the API section, and we'll go ahead and say we're going to add a comment to our event. And that comment is simply going to say that malicious URLs were found. And that way, when an analyst goes and looks at the event and they look at the activity pane, they can clearly see that malicious URLs were found as a result of this input playbook or modular playbook run. Lastly, we're going to connect the utility block to the end block. Whoops, the end block. Previously, the end block didn't do much. but now it has a very distinct purpose. And the purpose of the end block is for us to be able to define outputs that then can be consumed by parent playbooks or playbooks that leverage this modular input playbook. So here, I'm going to define our output variable name as bad URLs. And I'm going to supply the bad URLs output variable with the results of our filtered output. So we'll say the virus total action results that have positives greater than or equal to 3, we're going to say those are our bad URLs, and then can be used by parent playbooks that leverage this modular playbook. And I'm going to deduplicate that. So if there are any duplicates in there, the parent playbook won't have to deal with those. They'll just have to deal with a single set of all the unique URLs that were found that were malicious within this particular investigation. So now that we've done that, we're going to name our playbook as URL investigation. And the other thing that quickly I wanted to show is if I had created this playbook sort of haphazardly, it still would work like this, but it's difficult to read. One of the other things that I'm very excited about, because I like to have my playbook super neat and organized, is the auto arrange capability. We click this button and our playbook is automatically arranged in a nice, neat, orderly fashion. So finally, I'm going to save this playbook, like I mentioned. We'll just say this is our first commit. And now that we've done that, we've successfully created our first modular playbook, this URL investigation playbook that can be used anytime that we want to investigate URLs. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a parent playbook that actually leverages this modular URL investigation playbook. So to do that, we're going to go to another new playbook. And here we'll see we get the select that playbook type again of automation or input. And in this case, we're going to say this is an automation type playbook because we want this playbook to execute every time we get a phishing email. So we're going to go ahead and hit select. And now the first thing that we want to do is we want to investigate those URLs that were extracted from those phishing emails. So to do that, I'm going to drag a line out of here and I'm going to select playbooks. And I'm going to call our input playbook that we just created. And we'll search for URL investigation. I can already see it in the list here. So we have our URL investigation input playbook, and I can see on the right-hand side that it takes an input of URLs of type URL, and it creates an output of bad URLs of type URL. So go ahead and click on that, and we can see, sure enough, that URLs is the field in question here that we want to be able to pass data into. So here, I'll go ahead and go and say, yes, I want to pass in the request URL from my event, and we can validate that here. Is yes, the request URL is where that URL is that we want to investigate. I'm going to pass that into my playbook. So I'll go ahead and say request URL. The other thing that we could do that the new data path editor allows for is easily creating custom data paths. So sometimes when we ingest events, or if they were posted to the product, they don't always conform to the CEF standard. In those cases, we may want to have a custom field name. So to do that, we can hit the plus sign here, and we can say custom URL field. And we could save that. And now that custom data path is available. And even more importantly, we can pass multiple fields into this URL parameter of the playbook, of the modular playbook that we created. So here I'll go ahead and click on this. And we can see that now we're passing both request URL and the custom URL field into the URLs parameter of our modular playbook. And our modular playbook will act on both of the data from both of these different fields individually. And we could deduplicate that data in case there's duplicates across those two fields or within those two fields themselves. And then finally, we can use the output of that URL investigation to maybe then go ahead and block that any bad URLs that were identified by that modular playbook. So here, we'll go ahead and say, let's run a block URL action. With Zscaler. We're going to pass in the outputs of our URL investigation playbook, and specifically the bad URLs field. So any bad URLs that our URL investigation playbook found, we're going to pass that into our block URL action of the Zscaler app. And of course, like I mentioned, there's lots of other things that we might want to do as part of a phishing investigation. But for now, this is all we're going to do for this demo. So I'm going to name this playbook Phishing Investigation Demo. And we'll go ahead and go to our settings. Say that it operates on all types of events. And then we'll save. And we'll say first commit. Save. And the last thing that we want to do is test our playbook. And to test our playbook, we're simply going to look at the playbook ID here. We're going to go to our playbook editor. We're going to go to the debugger section, which is a great way to test new playbooks that you've just developed. And we're going to say, let's run this against event number 994. So we're going to say run against event number 994 and hit test. And here we can see that our playbook started running. We can see that our sub playbook now has started running and that our virus total URL reputation check is run. The filter has been run. Our comment has been run. And then our playbook finally finished. So we'll go and look in that investigation. And sure enough, we see that the phishing investigation demo playbook was kicked off. We see the URL investigation sub playbook was kicked off. The virus total URL reputation check was performed. And indeed, the URL that was determined to be malicious was also blocked. And finally, that comment that was part of our URL investigation playbook was added to the activity pane, indicating to the analysts that malicious URLs were found.
Thank you so much, Ian, for that presentation and demo. We're about ready to wrap up this tech talk, but before we do, I wanted to share quick resources available to you to continue on your journey. You'll also receive these assets in a follow-up email, as well as the recording. The webinar Empower Your Security Operations with Automation tells you more about why Splunk SOAR went to the cloud. Our blogs, Splunk SOAR, Anyone Can Automate, and Soaring to the Clouds with Splunk SOAR will give you an in-depth description of why we went to the cloud and how Splunk SOAR's Visual Playbook Editor can help you. Our SOAR virtual event sessions show you how Splunk SOAR can be used to solve for many security use cases, like phishing, case management, cloud accounts, and vulnerability management. And don't forget that we have an incredible community of Splunk users on our community site. You can search the answer section on Splunk SOAR. You can continue the conversation for this talk within the discussion section called Tech Talks, where you will find all the additional resources. And finally, there's Splunk Ideas, where you can submit new product enhancements or vote for current ideas from other customers. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules to join us today. Please tune back in for future Tech Talks. We're excited to share this series with you.